here with you today. On the line, I have Steve Rayson from Buzzsumo and Katie Loynes from WordStream. And we're going to go over what we learned from analyzing 2 million posts and $500 million in AdWords spend. We hope today that you have a lot of items that you can take home and employ right on your own content strategies. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get things started. So as I said, I have Steve Rayson. He's the director of Buzzsumo. He has so much knowledge about content and headlines and what really works and where to post it and you know what you should put in front of your audience. So we're so excited to have you, Steve. Thank you so much. Steve is in the UK, so it's 4 p.m. his time. He's working a little late in the day for us, and we're so excited. Thank you so much, Steve, for joining us.
No, thanks. It's really nice to be here, and really looking forward to the webinar with everyone and everyone's questions as well. So, no, really looking forward to it.
Yes, and definitely feel free to jump in with questions that you have. I'll be here to answer them or feed them to our panel here. And we also will be sending a recording of this session. So if you miss out or you have to jump out at the end of the day, that'll definitely go out via email later on this afternoon. We additionally have Katie Loynes. Katie is a senior customer success specialist here at WordStream. She also just piloted and put together a whole bunch of content for our reseller channel, and Katie is just very aggressive in working with our clients and getting them up to speed. So Katie, thank you so much for being here with us. We're very excited to see what you have to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely excited to be here.
So before we kick things off, I did have a few poll questions I wanted to toss to everybody in the audience. So first we wanted to see what your level of expertise is. So the poll is open. What type of experience do you have in content? Are you beginner? Are you just getting started? Are you advanced? Do you consider yourself an expert? Looks like a good healthy mix. I'll give everybody a couple more minutes. Looks like kind of intermediate looks to be our biggest group here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. And then we wanted to see, you guys, what is your biggest challenge that you had with writing copy? So is it coming up with a topic? Is it coming up with the right headline? What is it that you guys are struggling with? Looks like a lot of people are struggling with getting a click or figuring out where to share their content, and I think that you hear what our team put for you guys today. We have a lot of awesome strategies and techniques that you can definitely take away. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. And I'm going to hand it over to Steve. Steve, why don't you go ahead and kick it off for us?
Okay, let's do that now. So just put my screen into full slide mode. Can you see that okay, Katie and everyone?
Yep.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks very much for the introduction. Yeah, as Callum was saying on the introduction there, we at Buzzsumo are really interested about what content engages, so it may be relevant to your questions there and your challenges about how do you get people to share your content, how do you get people to link to it, for example. And we try to help people do that better by understanding data, really. That we're all about data. So if you don't know Buzzsumo as a tool, we crawl the web, we classify content, and then we look at the social shares so that you can analyze social shares of content based on e-learning, on kitchens, whatever you want, and we'll show you what content is resonating and sharing. And so what we did with our colleagues here at WordStream is we went away and we looked at 2 million recent articles. We pulled 2 million recent articles from our database to have a look at what that told us about what content was engaging, and that's what I'm going to share with you this afternoon. But I just wanted to start with just one caveat, really, and that's that I'm going to show you what was engaging on average across 2 million posts, but obviously content formats vary quite a lot according to audiences. Certain audiences like different types of content. So my main caveat is you're going to have to do a bit of your own research in your area, even though I can show you general trends. And I just wanted to demonstrate this point. I mean, you can, using Buzzsumo, pull out the most shared content formats for any topic. You can enter a topic and you can see a chart similar to we have here. So I went in, I pulled just a lot more data really, so I pulled a lot of data out, but here you can see for this particular topic, list posts are the most shared. In fact, significantly so. There are twice as many list posts, shares for a list post as there are shares for other on average. So I was going to start with the question, does this spread, this sort of average shares by content type, is that for the topic of social media, carp fishing, or articles on the UK election? I've chosen some fairly eclectic topics here. So where do you think that, what do you think that represents? And the answer is quite an interesting one really, because the answer on this one is it's actually articles about the UK election. So on average, list posts about the UK election got shared twice as much as other posts on the UK election. So you can see that's probably unexpected. I wasn't expecting it to be list posts. I thought that might be more social media or something else, for example. And if I look at a different topic, so I've pulled out an analysis from Buzzsumo here of the most shared content formats for another topic. So is this one social media, carp fishing, regression analysis? I told you my topic choices were, I was just trying to be fairly wide-ranging. And a lot of you probably work in the space and you'll know the answer. This is actually social media. So in social media, most content is shared fairly widely, but people in social media really love infographics. So infographics get more shares than any other content. So that's why we see so many of them, because people recognize this. And just to finish off with a couple more, okay, look at this one. Videos are shared 3 times as much as others. Is this carp fishing or regression analysis? And the answer, as you probably expect on this one, is actually carp fishing. If you're going to produce content in the area of carp fishing, you really want to be producing videos. People seem to love watching people fish, catch fish, etc. And finally, just for completeness, this is actually the content shares for regression analysis. There were less posts, and overwhelmingly the most shared posts were how to, which is I assume people struggling on how do I do regression analysis, do I remember it from school or my stats class. But hopefully you can see just from taking those 4 simple examples that the most shared content formats vary a lot from area to area. So you do need to research what works in your area. You can use tools like Buzzsumo or other tools for doing that, because it's not just content formats. If you're writing about kitchens, for example, your best network is probably Pinterest. Pinterest gets masses of shares of beautiful kitchen designs, for example. Whereas if you're writing about SEO, then Twitter's probably a better network. So it's not just the formats that vary, it's also the networks where you get traction. Different topics, different content lengths work well. For example, different days of the week work well. For kitchens, interestingly, Fridays and Saturdays are quite a good day for publishing content about kitchens, maybe because people have time. Whereas if you're publishing about a business topic, you're probably better on a Monday or Tuesday. So my caveat is you need to know what works in your area, but what I'm going to show you is what we found looking at 2 million articles overall. So I'm going to show you what engages, what sort of content engages more than the average content as we go here. And I'm running through the slides, but do ask questions as we go, and we'll pick them all up at the end. So do feel free to ask questions in the chat box. So I just want to start by everyone loves a quiz. We started this webinar, I just started it with a simple form of quiz because it's interactive and it's engaging. And what we found in our sample was the average quiz was shared 1,900 times, which is really high for an average. Averages tend to be a lot lower than that. So people like sharing quizzes. So if you just want to raise awareness, quizzes are a really great way to do it, and you can use tools like Quizzer to build them. And a lot of the big sites like Playbuzz, BuzzFeed really recognize this, and some of them really go viral. These are the most shared quizzes on playbuzz.com, for example, so huge shares of quizzes. The only downside of quizzes are they get shared really well, people engage them, but hardly anybody links to a quiz. So if you're looking to build SEO juice from inbound links, then a quiz really isn't the way to do it, but it is a way to raise awareness and get people engaging with your content. So quizzes, really good one, use tools like Quizzer to do that. Another one that's consistently one of our most shared content formats is a list post. Again, I suspect no surprise here, although you may be surprised when I show you which numbers are most shared. So I think part of the reason about list posts is people are pushed for time, people want scannable content, and list posts promise the sort of scannable format. And I think list posts also emphasize the importance of headlines. The headline of a list post almost contains a promise, which is 5 ways to improve something, 6 steps to do something on Google Analytics, for example. So a list post almost has a sort of promise in the headline, and I think headlines are important in people clicking through and people sharing it. So list posts, which is really anything beginning with a number, are really well shared. And you probably know this, but the number that was most shared across all of our posts was the number 10. The most shared list posts begin with the number 10. So I've got some examples here that I just put up from Buzzsumo results. So 10 things your mom never told you, 10 common mistakes, etc. So we found on average list posts beginning with 10 worked best, but it's not true in all areas. Some areas it can be a 5 or a 3, and if it's a 5, that's great. It's half the work of doing 10 in your list post. So 10, the most shared list post. I'd probably take a bet with you on this one about what was the next most shared number. I'd be surprised if many people guessed this. So I pulled up and I did the analysis. I used a little statistical package called R, what were the most shared, the most common ones. And the next most shared number for a list post, some of you may be shouting 7, 4, 5, but it was actually 23. So the next most shared number after 10 was 23. And I need to do some research to understand this a little bit more, but quite a lot of sites specifically use that number 23, and so I need to understand a bit more of the psychologists around that. But here are just some examples of well-shared posts beginning with 23. So yeah, that was an interesting surprise for me. I do lots of data analysis, and I found others with 10 and 5, but in this particular sample, 23 was the second most shared. So interesting stats there. Okay, images. Images engage audiences. You probably all know this anyway. And we process images so much faster than we process text as individuals. And again, in a time-pressured world, we can see things much faster in images. Studies suggest that we actually process an image 60,000 times faster than text, and that we can get a sense of a scene when we look at it within less than 1/10 of a second. We get the sense of that scene and what's happening. So images are very powerful, but you sort of instinctively know that, but we like to look at the data. So just showing you what data shows. This is from a slightly different piece of research. We did a piece of research of 100 million and looked at the shares for those with and without a picture. Now you could argue you shouldn't really post without a picture anyway, but the data shows you why. So on average, Facebook posts with a picture got twice as many shares as posts without a picture. So we know that images work. But do we need more than that? I was interested to then look in a bit more detail the other week about, so should I just, and how often should I use the picture? And the analysis we did came up with this sort of golden ratio, really. These are I should explain, I have a title really, shouldn't I, on this slide? But these are the average shares on the left, and at the bottom is the number of words per picture. So what this is showing, the post that got the most shares on average, so across these millions of posts, the average there was 140 shares, but the post that got the most on average had 1 image to every 75 to 100 words. Now I can't say that's always going to improve your content engagement or sharing rates, but it's probably a good ratio to be looking at. Do you have an image frequently in your text, particularly long form? And I say an image every 75 to 100 words seems to be a fairly good target to aim at based on the data that we have there. A little bit more about images. You can use images in your posts, and that's great. That improves the shareability, it improves the engagement. But there are a couple of content formats which are specifically designed to use the power of images. And you can leverage these 2 content formats. One you'll know very well, infographics. One that I personally think is less well used, and I've been banging on about this recently, is what I call a picture list post, and I'll just go through both of these. So infographics, I'm sure that you've all seen them. We saw in social media how they were the most shared, and in fact in the sample we took, the most shared content format overall was infographics, and actually that image there is a snippet from infographic that we built around using graphs. People really like infographics in particular areas, and they get particularly well shared across people. Obviously they work well on platforms such as Pinterest as well. And I think it's just because you can tell a lot, you can tell a whole story in an infographic very quickly. I picked one up here. There is so many infographics to choose from, but this is one I liked, which is really a nice little chart showing me the best jobs for personal. If you've ever done a personality test, you'll know that you get scores like ESTJ, or I'm personally an ENTP, just further down this chart here, and it shows you what type of jobs are best suited for you. They're really nice summary things that you can use, and a good infographic adds a lot of value. It's not simply putting pictures, it's trying to add value through the images and the way that the content's laid out. But the other one that I mentioned is Pictureless Posts. And I think you can really maximize the power of images if you have a curated series of them. And the word curated here is quite a random series of images. If you curate images, they can be powerful. So if I'm looking at images of a particular, I don't know, ideas for small kitchens or small gardens or, you know, whatever it happens to be, great landing pages, someone who's curated a series of the best of those is really useful for me, because as a curator, they've done the heavy lifting, they've found me examples. It's something I can skim quickly because of that power of images. But you can use Pictureless Posts in so many ways, and I think they are underused. So you use a Pictureless Post to explain a concept. You can take the picture, take people through a series of pictures to explain your concept. Pictureless Posts as well work well in doing comparisons. You can compare different things, you know, whether it's clothing, logos, etc., through a Pictureless Post, or just, you know, I saw one the other day on climate change which showed comparisons of water levels and things like that. One I think is underused is you can tell a story, and I'll say a little bit more about that, but you can curate an original list of pictures. You can demonstrate a process. A how-to post work really well, where you have a series of pictures that say step 1, step 2, step 3, this is how you fix, you know, I don't know, a heater, this is how you fix something. So they work really well in that context. I think it's because you can skim them quite quickly and get the sense of if they're relevant quickly. And I just put this up as an example. If you look across the top 3 pictures from left to right, and then look across the bottom 3 from left to right, you probably get a really good sense of this story. Just from, you know, in probably less than a second, or in a second, you get a really good sense of the story in a way that if I tried to tell you that story in text and you had to read it, it would take so much longer. And so Pictureless Posts can tell stories incredibly well. And I think you can think about how you use them in your industry as well. So what does a successful project look like in pictures? You know, what's a good case study in pictures, for example? So I think you can use Pictureless Posts in this way, and we've seen them go viral. And this was just another example. I like this one. This was just showing how logos have changed over time. So it's just a time comparison one. But I've seen some beautiful ones of pictures of people aging over time, etc. And people like to view those images. And I think they have real viral potential. So these are just a few examples I selected. I could have selected just so many, but different examples of content which are literally Pictureless Posts. And you know, the Conservative Tribune one is quite unusual, really, because it's showing pictures of school lunches from across the world and then doing comparisons just through the pictures. And that got really well shared on Facebook, for example. So Pictureless Posts, do you think about those? The other form of content we found that people really like is content that answers questions. Now, again, it's probably obvious, but people obviously are busy people. They want to do their jobs better and faster. And if they can find content that gets them to do their job better and faster, they really like that. And there was a good piece of research last year done by New York Times and Latitude, which looked at why do people share content, which goes to the heart of our questions this afternoon, really. Why do people share it? And they came up with 5 main motivations, but the number one was to bring valuable and entertaining content to others, to my colleagues, to my friends. And this afternoon I'm just focusing on that valuable bit. If something's really valuable and really helpful, people share it with their colleagues, for example. So how-to posts are a classic, therefore, in terms of content that people like. And in the sample, I looked at the top 10,000 how-to posts. Okay, I'm just looking at the top 10,000. There are tens and tens of thousands. But the top 10,000 posts averaged 19,000 shares, which is huge. And really, you just want to be the authoritative answer to questions your customers, your users are asking. So what's a common question they're asking? Can you be the best answer? And I really like Leodin's quote here, which is, your task often when you're writing is to be the best answer. So what questions are people asking? And you can talk to your sales teams, you can talk to your support desks, etc. There are lots of ways you can uncover the questions people are asking, but you want to be the best answer. And I did quite a bit of research looking at why are some of these so well shared, and I found that they follow quite a typical format and layout, really. And so this is just an example of what I think is a winning how-to post. This is actually by Anne Smarty, who's great. And I just picked out a couple of the points here. It's got clear numbered steps. Larry Kim does this really well from WordStream. Clear numbered steps. Links out to further information, so you can take it further. Good use of images. In each step, a nice image taking you through what to do. And I also like the tips at the bottom, which make it more actionable. You can do this, etc. Change the file name, whatever it happens to be. So when I was looking at how to post, I thought you might be interested in this, the type of structure that seemed to work really well for a how to post. And then finally on how to post, it's the long form content gets more shares. People seem to, if they're engaged, prefer long-form content. So on average, and this was sort of surprising, we found that long-form content actually got more shares than shorter-form content. My caveat again from the beginning is that if you're writing about beautiful kitchens, actually you want to just be writing 1,000 words and have lots of images. So it's slightly different. You have to do your own research. But on average, people do like long-form content and are prepared to share long-form content. But again, you have to research what works in your particular area. And just a couple of more points here is, how do you research? You can use Buzzsumo, you can use other tools. Obviously, I'm a director of Buzzsumo, so I'm just going to point it out, but there is a free version of Buzzsumo. You can type in any topic to Buzzsumo, and we will simply show you the most shared content for that content for any particular time period. And you can filter by language, country. You can click a network and see the most shared on Twitter, the most shared on Pinterest. And there are some great buttons in there as well. You can click on View Sharers and see who's sharing and amplifying content. That's really useful. And as shown here, you don't need to put a topic in. You could just put a domain in. What's the most shared content on moz.com or buzzsumo.com? So whether you use Buzzsumo or not, you should try to do that research. In a tool like Buzzsumo, you can run an analysis report for a topic or a domain. So this is one for e-learning. What's the most shared content in e-learning? So on average, we looked at 12,000 articles. On average, they're getting 104 shares. I think that's useful because sometimes I think you can think, God, I'm doing so badly, you know, I've only got 60 shares. Actually, that could be really good. You mustn't be distracted by the people who get lots of thousands, because often it's just around their platform and their audience. When you look at averages, they can be a lot lower. And I can see here, interestingly for e-learning, you know, video is the least shared content format. List posts, why posts work better. I should be sharing on Facebook. So do your own analysis and look for patterns. If you're looking at what's working in your area, whether you're using Buzzsumo or you're just using Google, look for patterns. I pulled here an analysis of the most shared posts of a guy called Travis Bradbury, who's really well shared on LinkedIn. And you can do this in Buzzsumo. You can search for the most shared content of an author as well. And if you look for patterns, there's a very clear pattern to what Travis has worked out on LinkedIn. People want to be successful. People use LinkedIn to find content that's relevant. And he's using the word successful in almost every post title that he's putting up here. So that's a pattern. Here's another pattern. Here are some of the most shared quizzes on BuzzFeed. I've used this one before, so apologies for those who've seen it, but they've found a quiz format that works for them. The hardest quiz, the hardest quiz, the hardest quiz, for example. They find that if people do the hardest quiz and they score well, actually something like 90% of people then share that quiz with their friends. They're probably just showing how intelligent they are. I'm not sure they share it so well if they only score 10%. But look for patterns in terms of what's working in your area. And just another little extra tip for you, really, which is research the questions your audience is asking. I mean, there's no point creating the most beautiful how-to post and really researching it if nobody's really asking the question you're answering. And one thing that I like to do is simply go to Google, or you could do the same in Buzzsumo. If you use this syntax, sitequora.com, which is obviously a question site, you can then type in a topic. So you could just type in AdWords or PPC. In this case, I typed in the two topics, and that brings back a set of results that looks like this. It's showing me the questions that have been asked in Quora about that topic. So what's a good click-through rate? What's the average CPC? What's the average click-through rate? How much can I expect to pay? And those might give me indications as to the questions I want to answer and the questions I want to refine. So that's just a little tip on finding questions. The other thing I'd say is things change. What was engaging your audience a year ago may not be the same now. Things can change quite quickly. So what I would say is always have a look at what's engaging your audience right now, today. And if you're a content marketer or you're writing copy, you have a responsibility to know what's engaging your audience because you're writing for them. So what are they sharing today? What have they been sharing in the last 2 hours or the last 4 hours? And there are tools that allow you to do this. One of them you can use is simply Sumo Trending. And I'll see if I can do this, if I can just go live and show this. This is Sumo Trending live. You can choose any of the categories, but you use this plus button and you can create your own topic. So here is the most shared content today on content marketing. So this was published 3 hours ago, etc. So I can start to see what's trending now on content marketing. And so I'd use tools like that to see what's engaging your audience right now, because that may spark ideas for what you're going to do next week. And if you see certain content start to trend, which might be about a new product, a new piece of research, a new piece of data, that may trend for a week or so, so you can write your own content about that. So as soon as you see some emerging content, you could take that and then write your own perspective on that for next week. And I saw people do it on Mirrormaker's Internet Trends report. It's a great report that comes out. And quite a few people then wrote an article saying the implications for content marketers, and it was published a week later. So you can see content that's emerging today, and then you can respond to that and create content so that you're the trending content next week. So I hope that's a useful overview of some of the things that we found and some insights there. I'll pass back now to Callahan and Katie. So Katie, if you want to take control back, or so I'll pass it to Katie. So I'll just pass control over. So thank you very much again for that, and over to you, Katie. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Steve. So, just going off what Steve talked about, Steve talked so much about content, content that's most engaging and successful online, when looking from a paid search perspective, it's really all the same. So you need to be able to bring value to your searchers through your ad copy and really be the best answer on that page, because, when you're thinking about a searcher coming to Google, there's just so much intent there. So someone's coming to Google, they have something in mind, you want to be the best answer on that page, and it's really all in the same vein. So, we're going to talk here a little bit about creating ads, focusing on your ad copy, and just talking about how to be kind of that best answer on the page when someone is searching. And so just starting with, a few things that we do know about ad copy. So, writing ads is tough. When I'm working with my clients, they're constantly asking the question, where do I start? How do I fit in all of the information about my business in such constricting character limits? How do I even know if my ad is working? A lot of people will say, I feel like I'm following all the best practices, I've done all I can, and I'm still just not seeing the success I want. And so here we're going to walk through a little bit of some of, maybe some of the more big hitters for creating ads, everything from the basics to some of the more advanced features that you'll really want to pay attention to when you're creating your ads. And all of these things that we're going to go through have, proven successful for many advertisers. Of course, I have to add my own caveat, as Steve did, where, you can, like I said, you can be following all the best practices, you can be doing everything you think is, in your capabilities, but still it's just all about testing. It's about learning from your experience and seeing what really works best for you based on your business, based on your customer base, who are these people searching for you, and just so much of this is important to really take advantage of the data, see what did work in the past, what didn't work, and really just learn from it and build off of that. And so, some of the biggest things to keep in mind is it's really just important to think about standing out from the competition. I know that this absolutely sounds easier than it really is sometimes, especially if you happen to be in an industry with a lot of competition. I know that when I personally look at a search results page, sometimes it feels like it's just a lot of the same. A lot of companies kind of offering the same messaging, offering the same products and services. But you have to keep in mind that you know your business best, and there is a reason that you are in business, because you do have something strong to offer. So it's really just important to express that. Think about why you are in business. What are you trying to do that's different from the competition? What do you offer? What do your customers value the most about your business? And really expressing that in an ad is going to help you to stand out and not simply just get lost among your competitors. And really, in doing so, you want to think about giving the searcher a solution and a reason to click on your ad. So the most important thing to focus on is really answering that need of the searcher. Like I said, there's just so much intent when a searcher comes to Google. They're coming to this page and they're in the search of a specific product or service. They're looking for something very particular. So make sure you're responding to that search. You know, I often tell clients just to think about, you know, what would you personally like to see when you search? I'm sure that everyone listening today has had those frustrating moments when you're searching for something very specific and you feel like you're just getting, you know, vague ads or vague results on that page. So, you know, as an advertiser, just think about what you would want to see personally, and that's really going to help in communicating with these searchers. You know, of course, like I said, this is maybe, you know, easier said than done, but, you know, advertising is subjective, and the value is really all in the eye of the beholder. But there still are those specific best practices that are going to help you be most effective. You know, for example, if I'm looking for a luxury hotel, I certainly don't want to see ads for cheap hotels. If I'm looking for a blue sweater, you know, tell me how I can find that blue sweater. It's, like I said, all about answering that need and finding the answer to my question. And, you know, Steve said it as well. You know, there's no need to answer a question that no one's asking. And similar with your paid search ads, it doesn't make sense to answer a need that's not being asked for. So if you're showing me something that I'm not even searching for, it's just not going to be relevant, and you're going to end up not seeing the success that you want. And so, you know, I know that you're probably hoping that I'm here to tell you the huge secret to ad success, but I promise that the ad basics really are just as important as some of the quote-unquote, you know, fancier features available for creating ads. And it's really important to take into consideration something like this statistic below, where you see that, you know, in a survey, almost 50% of people surveyed couldn't identify paid ads on the search engine result page if there wasn't a right column. And so just think about this. You know, it really means that you're needing to impress upon searchers, because so many of the ads on the page are more immediately visible than, you know, the organic ads. So if you're thinking about a searcher coming to Google and they're not even really differentiating between a paid search and an organic ad, it's just giving you so much potential to be there, you know, right at the top in a prominent area, even on the side of the page, and really just impressing upon those searchers. So if you aren't putting effort into at least the basics, your ads aren't going to be appealing enough to get that click. And some of the important basics include, you know, just even proper formatting, including keywords in the headline and body of the ad text, using appropriate calls to action to reel searchers in, you know, focusing really on your targeting and just being specific. And I know that a lot of these might sound so obvious, but so many times, you know, I think that advertisers tend to rush through ad copy, not really thinking everything through, overlooking some of the basics because they think that there are more advanced features. But really, if you don't have that solid core and that solid foundation, all of the advanced features aren't going to help you out. So you really just need to focus here on having that strong ad copy, you know, continuously testing to see what is going to work best as that foundation, and just paying attention to, you know, things like formatting and keyword usage. Otherwise, your ads aren't going to be captivating enough. If you think about it, you know, poor grammar, misspellings, and so on are just going to make you look lazy and somewhat discredit your business. Strong call to actions can be really motivating too. You know, as a searcher, I need some direction. So tell me what to do next. Tell me why I should click on your ad and what I should expect upon doing so. When it comes to targeting, you know, again, just think about your audience. This really goes back to answering a specific need and just ensuring you are answering the right need. This could be, you know, things like I mentioned, something such as cheap versus luxury. Someone looking for something very local versus, you know, if you're a supplier that ships worldwide or something like that. You know, just really think about your audience and make sure you're providing that information to them so that they're not having to do all of the legwork and digging to see, you know, are you the appropriate business for my need. And so here we can just look at a few examples of ads that, you know, may or may not have followed some of the best practices, and we can take a look at the impact that they might have on searchers. So here in this first ad, we have something that is very repetitive. You know, I don't need to be told the company name 2 times just in the headline. So for example, this is a steakhouse in New York. So if I'm, you know, perhaps visiting New York and I'm looking for a restaurant to eat out in, and I search for something like steakhouse. Okay, you know, I understand that their name is Spark Steakhouse. That's been pretty clear in the headline, but they could have used this headline in so many other ways to really captivate me. You know, why should I go to this business? What's so great about them? And then you even look at their body and they're advertising lobster and seafood. If I'm looking for a steakhouse, you should be, you know, really answering my need for some steak. I would, you know, I'd really prefer to see something about, you know, maybe that they have the best steak, or, you know, just something to boast upon that, because that's what I'm searching for. I wasn't looking specifically for seafood. And so they're answering a need that I wasn't even looking for, in which case I'm probably not going to click on that ad. They didn't bother to, even make sure it was a flowing sentence. It's just, it would take one period to be a little bit more cohesive, but, it's just a little bit of laziness. And like I said, that can just discredit your business because it looks like you're not trying to appeal to me as a searcher. You can see that recently I searched for them again to see if maybe there was any improvement in the ad, and there have definitely been improvements here. So you can see that they're better utilizing the headlines. So you can see best steaks in New York. That's a lot more appealing for someone who's looking for a good meal rather than just listing your business name. They're using a lot better formatting and grammar, and they even actually included a call to action now. So they're telling me, book online today. They're telling me what my next step should be, which is going to help motivate me in deciding what to do next. It just feels like they're utilizing a lot more influential keywords and actually answering my need here. In the second ad, we have another repetition problem. So I can tell, I understand what the name of the business is, but other than that, it's really fairly vague messaging. So just as a bit of background, this is a plastic surgery company. So if I were to go to Google and search for, plastic surgery in Miami, Florida, I'm getting an ad that's telling me about some technique that I, may or may not know about. They're telling me that, it might look the way I've always dreamed, but they're not telling me anything about their business. And especially something like plastic surgery, where if you're looking to commit to something, I want to know why I should be opening your ad. Why should I click here? What's your business have to offer? But really, just by looking at this ad, I have no idea what I'm going to get from this business. So, it really goes to show that you're wanting to provide as much information as possible to make it easy for me to decide to click through and investigate your business. I need something to give me confidence. Then here in the third example, you see that I searched for a specific brand of toaster oven. So I searched for Breville toaster oven, and the first ad is the one that actually answers my need. You can see that in the first one, I searched for Breville toaster oven. That's exactly what the headline says for Amazon. Whereas if you look at the Best Buy ad, they're advertising they sell toaster ovens, but they might not even necessarily sell the specific brand I'm looking for. So here I'm a lot more confident clicking on that first ad, which is more likely to send me to a Breville product page versus Best Buy, who might potentially just be sending me to a generic toaster oven page. So again, not to be too repetitive, but it really is just about answering that need. If I'm looking for something specific, tell me that that's what you're going to offer me. Here, again, as another brief example, it goes back to, just thinking about your audience and thinking about the specific keywords that are going to help you to, sell your business or sell your business to a searcher. So if I'm looking specifically, for this, cheap hotel in California, all of these ads speak specifically to discounts. They speak to percent off. They, are really specific to my need, and again, that's going to help me to click through to the ad. And again, here, these are all the basics of just paying attention to the impact your ad messaging is having on the searcher. You have to start at the basics to really understand whether or not a searcher is going to be compelled to click by the copy you're putting in front of them. And then once you feel like you have a strong basis there, then you can start with the advanced features. So here now, if we do take a look at some of the advanced features, these are going to help you to build upon that strong foundation that you have. So if we're looking a little bit here, using specific examples of success is going to be really helpful. So, this just plays off, again, providing the most relevant information to what someone's searching for, really highlighting your competitive advantages, using tangible messages such as prices and discounts. Because again, especially now if you're an e-commerce business who, you might be competing against those shopping ads, which are providing images and pricing, which is going to be, really a lot more standout than just some generic text ad. Now Google's really helping you to be more competitive in your search ads because you can provide so much information. So here, for example, if you look at these three ads, there's often a misconception where, if I'm number one, I'm going to be so successful. That's all I need. But it's really not true, because if you look at these ads, for example, if I'm looking at something like maybe wanting to sell my house, the second and third ads on the page are actually giving me a lot more information. They're a lot more appealing in that they're giving me specifics. For example, in the second one, I see lines such as seen on CNN, Fox News, 12 years experience, a nationwide company. They're boasting upon their experience and helping me feel confident in their business. Similarly with the third one, #1 home buyer, will buy your house today. It feels like I can take action and have some success on my end as a searcher. Whereas in the first ad, yes, I'm still getting information, but nothing to really make me feel confident about their business. Here, just as another example, so I searched for digital agency in Boston. If I'm looking for a digital agency, I'm really, again, just going to want to see that messaging. So you can see here the #1 ad is actually for a company that's pretty prevalent in Boston. They're a very reputable ad agency, but they're not really speaking specifically to the fact that I want a digital agency. So if I were a user who was totally unaware of these businesses, seeing something that says we're not an ad agency might deter me because that's actually what I'm looking for. So you just have to think about how your messaging is going to come across. Of course, they're being a little bit playful and still, talking about how they're a fully integrated digital agency, but to some people that might not play off as well as just really utilizing the keywords that I'm searching for. So it's all about thinking in different perspectives. And again, testing this is going to be the most helpful. Maybe this ad is 100% successful, but like I said, it's all in the eye of the beholder, so some people might not respond as well as others. So if you're testing multiple ads, that's going to help you to see what really does work the best. So if we take a look at ad customers, ad customizers are something that's really going to help you to benefit from real-time updates in ads. It helps you to tailor your messages, include time-sensitive calls to action, and insert keywords dynamically. So ad customizers are a feature where Google allows you to utilize a custom spreadsheet that you've made with different information about your product and service offerings. So for example, maybe you have a wide variety of products with different colors, different brands. If you have this laid out in your spreadsheet, it's going to allow you to really easily insert that information into an ad without having to have a huge variety of different ads, without having to always go in and be updating your ads. You can have different customizations such as changing color, product names. You can have countdowns for sales. And they're really just going to vastly improve the relevance of your ad, especially with something like a psychological trigger such as countdowns. The real time really makes shopping easier and it just makes it feel less like an ad. If I'm seeing all of these specifics on products and feeling a little bit of a push to buy something because I know that a sale ends in 1 or 2 days, that's going to be a lot more effective than seeing a generic ad where every single day it tells me that I can see the same sale. And so it's just important to take into consideration some of these features because they are going to help you, again, just give as much information to the user as possible. Here I searched for some different hotels and flights, and I think that Expedia did a really good job here. I can't say 100% that they're using ad customizers, but I would guess they are just based on how specific their ads are. For example, in the first one, they say specifically that they have 755 cheap hotel deals in Los Angeles. A number that specific isn't something that they're probably just putting in an ad. It's something that they're driving from a spreadsheet because they know on specific days how many deals they have. And as a searcher, that's really appealing to me because it feels like they're giving me really relevant information, and I know that I can trust them at least a little bit because they're giving me that real-time information and not just using an ad that might be a little bit outdated. Similar in this second example, they're giving me such specific price points. Especially if I am sensitive to prices at all, having something included like this in an ad is going to win me over versus an ad that just says, get cheap flights to Boston and doesn't give me any pricing information. And again, all of this was dynamically inserted into these ads using a spreadsheet. So yes, there might be a little bit of behind the scenes work with your spreadsheet, but it's going to be so worth it because you're giving the searcher something so much more relevant, and that's going to help you to stand out from your competition. I know that a lot of people are probably familiar with ad extensions. They're one of the features of ads that have been around. They've changed a little bit, but there's just such a variety of ad extensions such as call extensions, call out extensions, location extensions, review extensions, ratings, social extensions, and just just by the numbers on that list, it just means that there's so much more you can add to your ads. It helps provide more relevant information and really bulk up your ad on that search results page. So it's really about visibility. You know, again, the more information, the better. And even though all of these specific ad extensions aren't necessarily getting clicked on, again, with the added visibility, with the added information, they're proven to help the overall click-through rate of your ad. Here on the right-hand side, you can see, you know, each one of these ads is using at least one different ad extension. And, you know, again, there's sometimes the common misconception where, well, if I'm not showing in the top positions, Google probably isn't even going to show my ad extensions. These 3 ads here were actually in positions 6, 7, and 8. So it's really just showing the potential that you have no matter where you are showing up on that search results page. And you never know exactly how Google's going to show your ad. So it's going to be most beneficial to you to set up as many ad extensions as possible, just in case you do have the opportunity to show for them. And you know, with ad extensions, you have so much control over them, because once you have them set up, you know, then it's kind of in the hands of Google. But at least you're doing your due diligence there, and again, providing all the information to a searcher that's going to help make your ad stand out. Here's another example. So say I have 2 different searches. I search for luxury car dealerships, and I also search for used cars. If you're looking at these 3 ads, so these 3 ads each appear on the top 3 spots on the search results page. If I'm looking at them, you know, all things considered, they all look pretty similar. So none are really capturing, you know, my eye more than the other, all pretty similar in size. But what you don't know is that in each instance, the 3rd ad on the page actually is doubled in size because of all the ad extensions they're using. So, you know, again, it's not all about bidding to that #1 position. It's about utilizing all of the features that you can in order to provide information, you know, that's going to be most profitable. And in doing so, you know, just providing all of that information that's going to captivate me as a searcher. So we can just talk briefly about, you know, how display and remarketing ads fit in here. So, you know, if you're talking about remarketing is just going to be a tool that you should at least try. You know, it's a little bit of a way for you to ease into the display network if you feel pretty comfortable with the search network, and now you're wanting to try to, you know, bring in that audience again. If you know, they just weren't responding to all of your search ads, you know, maybe they need a little bit of a push. Maybe they need some incentive to come back to your website. And here with remarketing, you're targeting more qualified and valuable users because they're already aware of your website. They've already shown some interest in your website, and now they just need another nudge. So here in these examples, the ad on the far right was just a generic display ad. So it's something that I just saw when I was browsing the internet, whereas the ad on the left-hand side is a remarketing ad because I went to their site, I looked at specific products, and now they're reminding me that I was interested in that product. And by seeing those remarketing ads, it's going to at least consider the, you know, maybe there was a reason why I didn't purchase in the first place. Maybe try offering me a deal. You know, be a little bit playful with your ads so that you can recapture my interest and at least get me back to your website. And you know, it's an opportunity to pull that searcher back in a different way, and just another chance to use this as a learning experience. And so, you know, with remarketing and with display ads, you really just want to be providing relevant ad images in relation to your website. You know, make sure you're including your logo. You want to have similar coloring. You just want everything to be really relevant in those ads. And especially with the display network, you want to try various sizes and formats so you give yourself as much potential as possible to show on a larger variety of sites. So on the display network, about 68% of ads actually are text ads, but you know, it just goes back to what's most compelling to users. And image ads are going to be a little bit more compelling just because of their nature. So they do happen to have a little bit of a higher click-through rate, but if you didn't have that text ad, you'd be missing out on a huge percentage of time ads more than it does. So it's really just about, you know, again, testing, giving yourself as much opportunity as possible. And then, of course, you know, we can't forget about mobile. So, you know, especially where you hear numbers where I think the number is now, by 2016, about 2 billion users worldwide will have smartphones. That's a huge audience, and if you're not advertising on mobile, you're missing out on that entire audience. Of course, mobile doesn't work for everyone, but at least consider it. Is there potential for your business to be successful with mobile? And with mobile, it's important to keep in mind things such as Google's new mobile ad format, where they're replacing the second line of ad text with ad extensions. You just want to be thinking about things such as adjusting your messaging accordingly. Adding more and more ad extensions to make your mobile ads really captivating. Monitoring your mobile ad position, and just again thinking about all of the opportunity that is on mobile. For example, here I did a few mobile searches. So I was on my mobile device. On the left-hand side, you can see that I searched for car rental, and you can just see that by adding ad extensions and really providing a lot of information, that's the #1 thing I see on my phone, especially with the ads taking up so much room at the top. If you're there at the top of page, it's going to get a lot of my interest because I'm not going to want to scroll too much down that page. And so here, if you're providing me as much information as possible, I learn a lot about your business. I can map to your business immediately. I can call your business. And it's just really about making the experience easier on the searcher. Even in the example on the right-hand side, I searched for a specific product, so this is a little bit more geared towards e-commerce. You can see that the shopping ads on my phone actually wouldn't even load. I tried reloading the page 3 or 4 times. The images wouldn't load, which means as a paid search advertiser, those search ads still are increasingly important, because what if something like that does happen? What if your product isn't showing up as it should in a specific area? Then I'm probably going to go to that second position ad rather than clicking on something that's not loading appropriately on my phone. And so again, it's all about testing. I can't say it enough, but it really is. And here, just as some final thoughts, regardless of following all the best practices, I'll say this 100 times, but it really is just testing and testing and testing, because one thing could work perfectly for one advertiser, it might not work at all for another. So it's really just about finding that sweet spot for you and continuing to test to find better and better ways to reach your audience. Mix up your ad extensions, try different ad copy, and just stay on top of anything new that Google does release to see if it'll be beneficial to your business. And finally, just learn from your ads, learn from that searcher response, and that's going to really help you to be most successful. So I know that was a lot, and hopefully there are some good thoughts that have come out of this, and we would definitely love any questions, whether it be now or as a follow-up, but hopefully all that information was helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you so much, Steve and Katie. We have a slew of questions, and I know that we're running right up until the end, so I'll try to get through as many of these as I can here quickly. So for Steve, we talked a lot about Facebook pictures. We had a few questions about other platforms. What about blogs? What about LinkedIn and Twitter? What do you recommend across the board for different networks? Do you always recommend, and I know, Katie, you touched on this too, do you always recommend adding a photo, or what is your best recommendation there? Does it change for different platforms?
Thanks. Yeah, no, it's images are strong across all platforms, really. So the analysis I gave there of blogs, you could see that the blogs that use images, and particularly an image every 75 to 100 words, got more shares. We've done separate analysis on Twitter and the use of Twitter cards, and interestingly, the use of the summary Twitter cards with images drive a lot more shares and engagement. And the same is true, on Facebook, of using the Open Graph tag, so you can bring in relevant images when somebody shares your post. Across the board, images are really strong on all platforms, obviously particularly strong on Pinterest and infographics getting shared there, but no, it's actually consistent across the board. It's certainly not just Facebook. Images have power and impact across the board, really, but also trying to use original images, but also images that are relevant to the post. There's been, Jakob Nielsen did some research, and actually, if the image is not relevant to the post, people ignore it. That has no value. I mean, literally zero value. People blank it out. So you need to use images that are relevant to the content that you're writing about. So yeah, no, it certainly works across all of the areas.
Great. Thank you for that one. And I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Steve, another question. So what are your thoughts on different languages, right? You talked a lot about staying concurrent with, your local audience. One of our questions was, in German, there's a little info on BuzzSumo. So for non-English speaking countries, do you have any certain recommendations on places they could go on BuzzSumo, or different techniques that you would use to get more localized information?
Yeah, and it's a big issue really, and one that we're looking at all the time about localized, and particularly language strings. But Sumo does work in multiple languages, so you can filter for just German, or you can type in German searches. We crawl the whole of the web, so language is not a barrier in that sense. You can put in a German language string. We'll show you the most shared content for that particular term in German. You can also share just from .de domains if you want to do that. There are filters on the left for country and top-level domains. I can't say what works in particular countries. I've not really done the analysis around that, but we have seen on trending that you get quite different levels of shares in the different countries. So again, I think it's what I said at the beginning, is you need to research your topic, your locality as to what works. But certainly on BuzzSumo, you can filter down and say, I only want to see content shared by German sites, say .de sites, and see what's the most shared, or I only want to see results from the German language. So you can filter down to see what works in your particular locality.
Great. My next question is going to go to you, Katie. Do you have a recommendation for audience filter when it comes to remarketing campaigns? Should you be looking at more when they visit the site, the bounce rate, the times on the site? Like, what type of filters do you think are the best for remarketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for remarketing, you can again, it's say this 1,000 more times, but it's about testing. So, it depends on if you're e-commerce versus a service provider, but it's just about looking at user behavior kind of as a whole. So you want to consider all of those things. For example, if you're an e-commerce provider, if someone's reaching your cart, adding products to their cart, but then not checking out, maybe create a specific audience list that says, now let's retarget them. Give them a messaging that's specific to that, saying, oh, you forgot something in your cart. I'm sure everyone has received one of those emails or one of those kind of, gentle reminders when a business follows them around the internet somewhat. But it's really just about creating audiences that are going to help you to provide a specific message. So maybe, maybe I'm a used car dealership, and I see that a specific audience visited, Ford models or something like that. Maybe I'd want to create just an audience list that, again, focuses on that specific page or that realm of my website so that I can offer a specific message. So it's more about kind of breaking it down in a way that's going to allow you to provide the most specific message to the behavior, of those users on your site.
Great. Now, these next two questions that I have are a little bit about SEO strategy. So, guys, do you have any recommendations for specific content that has great link building? And if so, what types of, ad tips or meta tags do you recommend for those organic results?
Yeah, I can comment on part of that. I mean, certainly we do analysis of what content gets shared and what gets linked to, and we do find quite differences. So if you want to build inbound links, one of the really nice ways of doing that is to write how-to content, evergreen content, content that has some sort of intrinsic value to it. The posts that get linked to less are things like list posts. So whilst they can be great at gathering social shares, not quite such a strong link, and quizzes certainly don't get, as I said, don't get linked to. So if you're going to write content designed for inbound links, certainly how-to content, evergreen content, that's the sort of content, because links build over time. Social shares tend to explode. You tend to get social shares most of them within the first week of sharing an article. It varies, but generally in the first week. Links take a lot longer. They can take 6 months and longer to keep building. That doesn't tend to happen with shares. So you really want to look at more evergreen content for that. So in terms of content format, that's what I'd look at if I'm looking at the sort of more inbound link building.
Great. All right, well, we are right at the top of the hour, so I know I didn't get to all of the questions. I tried to get through as many as I could, but we will be sending out a follow-up to everybody, so hopefully I can answer some last-minute questions if need be. And just want to remind you that, again, there will be a recording of the webinar as well as a slide share. So should you have liked this content and want to share, we love that. We thank you all for being a part of our session today. Thank you again to Steve and Katie. This has been wonderful content. We really appreciate all of your insights. And thanks again, guys. We hope to see you on our next webinar session. And for now, bye-bye.